Welcome to CISO Chair, where true cyber leadership, real stories, and industry insights take center stage. This is your seat at the table.
While 88% of boards now view cybersecurity as a primary business risk, only 13% of organizations have the advanced maturity to survive a sophisticated attack today. There's a massive disconnect between the high level strategy discussed in the boardrooms and the digital trench warfare happening on the front lines. Welcome to the CISO Chair, the podcast where we bring the gap from boardroom to the battlefield. To help us bridge this gap today, I'm honored to welcome a true veteran of the craft, Mr. Sunil Varkey. Sunil brings over 29 years of global experience, having held CISO mantle at some of the world's most complex organizations and playing leadership roles in multiple such groups, including HSBC, Wipro, and Symantec. He isn't just a leader, he's an innovator with multiple patents to his name and a deep background in banking, telecom, software, etc., that span in India, Middle East, Europe, and the US. Sunil, you have seen evolution of this industry from the basement to the boardroom. Welcome to CISO Chair, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Ashish. Thank you for having me.
So this is the first time that I'm going to ask on record, how are you doing today, sir? And I am looking forward to this conversation to hear and learn from your journey into this particular domain and industry.
Same here, Ashish. You have had multiple discussions or conversation like this with many leaders. So surely it will be a mutual learning for both of us.
Thank you, sir. So I would quickly want to start. What is it that first attracted you to cybersecurity, and what keeps you excited even today?
Like most of the people, it's not that planned and I came to this domain, because when I came to cybersecurity in way back in 2000, security was just a buzzword somewhere few people were talking about. There was nothing called security, or we were known as the antivirus guys, and later we were the firewall guys who come after office hours and do the change management at that point of time. It's a totally different way of working or domain at that point of time. I was lucky to meet a person called Sudarshan Mandian from Bangalore. So I met him in Saudi Arabia. So the conversations were all through that he was trying to make me understand that there will be a requirement or a domain called cybersecurity which is going to come. And that time we were discussing about CISA preparations, more on auditing side. But he was consistently trying to tell me that you have to look at this domain. So I always acknowledge the contributions Sudarshan Saras done to me to come to this thing. And if you look at the life cycle of all of that thing, there are people who are visionaries who say, okay, there is a problem statement, I need to build something. That is the architect, the guys who innovate or comes with the concept for that. Then we have the architects who build it and the software developers who build it. And there are people who do the sustenance of it, the operation level people. They are many a times they are the backside heroes where we don't see their faces very often, because they are continuously fighting the outages, the capacity management, change management, and releases. So that group. Then comes this other group saying they are the protectors or the defenders of the environment. Now, over the time, that got expanded with governance and all of that, regulatory requirements, everything coming to the upper stream. Otherwise, we were purely at the end as a guys who putting the controls and looking after what is happening. Also, many people, when they look at the career, there are different type of skill sets. Some are very specialized people who have the technical understanding to go so deep into that subject. And there are people who are very, very generic experts, or they know a lot of things, but are they so deep to understand or do things? May not be. And good thing is in my earlier career, I also understood that I'm not a specialist. I don't have the skill set or patience or the IQ to become a deep expert on any domain. So then I decided to go in a generic manner. And what excites me today, still now, is that there is a lot of uncertainty, lot of assumptions, lot of collaborations, because especially when you are fighting an environment where we don't know what is the adversarial tactics, because this keep on changing. The new vulnerabilities coming to picture. You need to continuously learn. In such environment, you see a better collaboration among that same peer groups. A lot of people come together to fight against the odd. So I love that, or that keeps me moving on that rather than getting into a routine. And I've been doing cybersecurity for around 25 years as a full-time career right now. Ashish.
Yes, sir, I am aware of that. And actually, you've been an inspiration to me as well. I remember one of those some time back, I think months between your Wipro and HSBC thing. But I distinctly remember reaching out to you when I was actually genuinely considering a PhD in some cybersecurity thing. And though we did not have a very long discussion around it, but the cues and some feedback that I got from you really kind of got me thinking on what is it that I'm trying to do, and you questioned the why. So that really helped. So thank you so much for that. And you have been an inspiration and a role model to many in the community as well. So thank you, sir. And with that
Thank
said, sir, I'm also curious to know, like, is there any particular role or event that you feel has shaped your perspective towards security leadership or has made you a better leader?
See, over the years, so since I mentioned 25 years earlier, because I have seen an era where we were the antivirus, the floppy disk. Because there was no centralized console, there was no pushing. We literally go with floppy disk, around 15, 20 of them, and go to every machine, put a floppy, and then wait for hours to get this updated. So that is how we started. Then every side, the new firewall came into picture. ADS became IPS. CASPs are all much later. We were talking virtual servers came in. The way agile model of development came in. So much of changes happened. But having said that, now artificial intelligence has taken the spin completely out of all of that. Because 25 years, I've seen evolution happening every year, every 6 months, new things were coming up. We were coping up. When cloud came, we said that's the ultimate. But now artificial intelligence came, wow. I mean, this is a new domain which we are going to get into. So it was a very fantastic journey. And also when, say, privacy came into picture, we naturally thought privacy is a natural extension of security before this regulation, because we thought the primary focus was to get the data protected. So that was all everything around that. The subject rights and everything came in the later discussions, but initially that was the one. ISO 27000 was at one point of time the ultimate certification we can get. Then we had the SOC, GDPR came into picture. So many things came. So that is why this domain is so exciting. It is a continuously we are getting into new. And there are fantastic people with a lot of depth in this right now. And I would say, fortunately, my elder daughter is also into this domain. She's also into cybersecurity. And when I look at them, they have much more deep technical understanding than the time we came into picture. Because that time internet was just coming out, information was limited, available only in smaller areas. So I think all of this domain, and I was fortunate to sit in different sides of the table. So I was a CISO, I was an individual player. There was a time I managed 300 people team. There was a time I was an individual contributor. Journey was good, and I also never resisted saying that I will do only a large team or a small team, or I do only in-house support. So that flexibility, I think, helped me to see perspectives from different angles.
I'm glad you touched upon that particular point, which actually also gets me thinking that how did your diverse experience and in different domains, banking, telecom, IT, software, etc., influence your risk management approach contextually, of course?
See, the biggest blessing we can get when we go to a new domain or a new subject is that how supportive is the peer environment or your team or your collaborating stakeholders are with you. Because I remember when I became a telco CISO in that 2011 2012 period, where a lot of regulatory pressures were there, and every telcos were mandated to do comply with the regulations. So that time, Burgess Cooper was the Voda CISO when I was the Idea CISO. And they were very supportive, and they had the patience. Also, the Airtel CISO, Uninor CISO, I mean Aircel. There was a lot of telcos at that point of time. Felix Mohan was the Airtel at that point of time. So these people were all good. They had the patience to sit with you and say, "This is what we are trying to address. Let us have a common approach. What do you need to look into that?" So I think the telco, my survival was possible to a great extent because I had a great manager, and which was Prakash Paranjape. And then I had a lot of peers in the industry, and we all worked together, not as competitors, to address the common cause. So that is same everywhere. When you go across to various, so network team and security team, we always say the longest fight in the technology world is between the network guys and the security guys. Okay, saying that who owns firewall, where does the problem happen? Is your change management created? IPS block the traffic? All of that thing is going to come into picture. But a better collaborating teams actually is very, very helpful for the company. And I was fortunate in all of that. So when I was in GE, we were running a massive networks, and Bhaskar Rao was the network head. We had a great time. When we were in Wipro, Pavan and Raja Okil and a lot of people, all together, we used to have our own drifts, debates, deliberations on who is right or who gets priority. But at the end of the day, everybody worked for the common good for the organization. So I always believe that I was blessed on that aspect to have this type of people around.
It's so good to see that the practitioners and the leaders within these different organizations, who I refrain from calling competitors, they may be from the business side, but at least from a security practitioner's point of view or from our community, it's good to see that kind of collaboration. And I've genuinely seen and I've felt that it is easy to reach out and speak with the people within the community. And thank you for
It is.
explicitly calling it out.
Ashish, especially very recently, I have done a video on privacy, okay, with Kavita Singh. So there, I called out a couple of names very specifically who contributed to the privacy awareness in the country. And because there was a time where we never thought privacy regulations will be coming into India. Is there a career opportunity in privacy? Is companies, apart from complying with the GDPR at a high level, are we really trying to look at in the letter and spirit the privacy as a priority? So there are people who actually worked for years to make that happen. So wherever I had a direct visibility, I tried to call them by name and acknowledge, saying that we value their contribution to the society.
I will be reaching out to you separately to just get a record of all the names that you also explicitly mentioned, because I also no, I mean there's a lot of fabulous work that a lot of people have done, and I would want to call out their names or rather mention it in somewhere in the references or description. So thank you for
Yeah, Ashish,
that.
if you look at it, there are some amazing people. So I'll take an example. When I joined Wipro, Wipro had a CISO called JPM or Jairam Palamari. Okay. And he moved into a different role. That's how I went in. And I was amazed with the way he done the policies, the risk management, and all of that. It's a classy work. Sridhar Govardhan was working with them. They all created some amazing work over there. So that's why I used to say this word that I was blessed, because I was just taking over their path. And I always try to acknowledge, saying that this is a weak area for me, and I had something these people have done, and I take it and run for it. I never try to go there and say dismantle everything and try to build something, because G says, why reinvent if there is something good already there?
Yeah, that completely makes sense. And so, just to pivot a bit, and because you also mentioned policies, I'm just curious to also know, do you have a secret or a thought process or an approach in terms of harmonizing security policies for bigger organizations that are kind of spread across the globe? And I'm also trying to bring in the cultural aspect where things may be very different, especially in the Europe, Middle East, US, India, etc.
Ashish, traditionally, we done policies based on a punitive control approach. So take an example, which I mentioned many times in earlier talks. I done my homeworks in my schools, not because I wanted to do it, because I was afraid of the teacher. So if I don't do it, either I have to stand outside or I will be, I get shouting. So because of that, I done the homework. The same way we wrote policy saying that if you don't do this, so take an example, I come half an hour late, your half day leave will be cut. Or I don't do my task well, your appraisal will have a low rating, due to which you will not get an increment or a promotion. Okay. These were all punitive controls. You do this thing, if not, this is the penalty. Okay. We wrote our policies also in the same way. Okay. When we were running in a homogeneous environment where things were in control or we were commanding, it was easy to have such policy. Now when we have different regions, so take an example, when privacy came into picture, the way we treat in India is not the same we treat in Europe, because they have labor unions and all of that thing is there, so work councils and all of that thing. So we need to do in a completely different way. Now the policies are written in a very participative way, because the new generation, you call them and say, I'm going to do a half day leave cut, they'll say, why you cut half day? I cut one day, I don't care. Okay. If no appraisal, if no promotion, no increment, I go to the next organization. Okay. With that, so we have to understand what changed in our environment. So participatory controls, we are actually going back to them and saying, look, if you don't do this thing, we have this impact. There's a cause and effect. So due to which we need to do, and this is what you contribute to that. I walk into many organizations face this problem. I have written some articles on this. I was working, say, one area, and I asked one person, what do you do? He said, I scan the network. So what do you do? I take an app. I know the features. I run it for this hour. This is the list of IPs I need to scan. I asked him why. Okay, because it's a typical that 5 why questions on that. Then he'll say, no, that is a monthly compliance record. But he's not understanding that he is actually making sure the holes in the organization technology environment has been identified and fixed. He's the key pillar in making resiliency to this organization and the services we do. If he understands his purpose in that manner, things will be different than saying that I run the scan. Okay. The same way, when you are writing the policy, you need to look at our stakeholders and say, what is their role here? Most of our awareness we create is based on this policy to make sure that everybody is aware. Now, we also need to make sure that they understand their role in it. So there is a considerable change happened on the way policy has been drafted, the way the awareness has been created and all of that, especially when the environment we operate has become so much of turbulent.
And I think it not only just helps the organization in terms of if the people know better on what they are doing and why they are doing, it also helps them as individuals for them to grow in their career, to look at to zoom out and look at it in a bigger scheme of things, and to also at the end of the day contribute better and connect the dots.
I should just think about it that I'm standing in the first floor of a building and all the staff walks in the morning. And there will be software developers, there will be people who are working in the data centers, there will be people in the security. Do you think everybody's mindset will be the same? It will not be. The developer is coming back and saying, I'm going to build something today. The other party is going to say that, okay, I'm going to make the organization run smooth. And the security guy should come with a mindset saying, I am here to protect this organization. There are attackers around me. I should feel shame if something passes through. Okay, you can have that mindset only if you understand the purpose you are doing of your job. Otherwise, if they consider a security guy, if they consider it's a 9 to 5 job, I go there and look at the logs and just report it out. It will be very difficult for the organization to survive with those type of people.
It's so true. Different people, different optics, different perspectives, different motivations, different aspirations. But that I also kind of gets me thinking, especially on the non-security part and especially on the executives front. Can you share any, or do you have any memorable incident or a boardroom debate that changed how you engage with, especially the non-security executives?
See, compared to at least for the last decade, the awareness for the executives on cybersecurity has changed considerably. Okay, even if you look at the World Economic Forum, cybersecurity is one of the major risks they anticipate. Okay, the media coverage of a fraud or a scam happening is continuously coming out. So directly in their personal life or on their career, they all have an exposure or a sensitivity to a cybersecurity. So that is much easier. The difference part can be there. They may slightly dilute the conversation or go into one of the recent activities related to a bank scam or a digital arrest or those type of things rather than talking at a cooperative level. The role of a security officer or a CISO is to assess the risk and communicate to them the risk and their options. It is them deciding the corrective actions. Then when they know that they have an accountability and they are well informed of the risk and they will take a good decision, because that's how they become leaders. Okay. Many a times what happens is CISO will think that he is the risk owner and he will try to communicate only with a lot of filters. And that's where the problem happens. Most of the CISOs started understanding that and started articulating in a different way. So I don't think we have much of an issue when we articulate and with data points. If you show to an executive saying that we need a support of cybersecurity, I don't think anybody will stop at this point, as long as it is reasonable. Because now when I say reasonable, now we reached around 10 to 12% of the IT budget is now on cybersecurity. So tomorrow now, if you go back and say, I'm going to ask for 15%, then there is a trouble where somewhere we have to stop. And there is a lot of waste in the cybersecurity spent. Most of the organizations have at least 2 or 3 products overlapping the same functions, bought by different stakeholders. Okay, everybody went for a platform story. We bought the platform because that's how the license was bundled, but we use only for that point solution which we bought for. So recently in one of the organizations, I was doing a study on their ecosystem. Average is 3. For every problem, they have 3 solutions. Ashish.
So what you have touched upon is how the role of CISO is also evolving. Is it right to interpret that CISOs should ultimately be business strategists first and techies second?
I don't think, Ashish, we can prioritize saying what is first or second. Now, CISO has different phases. Okay, one, he should be surely understanding business, because you cannot expect a prescribed note from your board or a senior business leader to say what you should do. They will only say, I'm going to expand it to this region and I need the latency to be reduced to this much, and this is what the service volume I am expecting. So when the architect designs it and come to you, you should be aware that what is a business requirement. Or you go back, and so then you have to weigh saying that what is higher, the potential impact of a breach or the cost of a breach is much higher than the benefit we are going to get. Are you going to run with a compensating control for the time being? Are you messing up on the regulatory compliance if you are going ahead with it? Because that's where you suddenly need to understand all the regulations. You need to understand what is the latest technology available. How does the SLA or the contractual compliance work on that? How does that impact your insurance coverage? How does your stakeholders' current norms work? Are there any other solutions which is contradicting to this requirement? So that is why you need to understand so many different things. In the same manner, you also need to be very, very technical. So in my aspect, I'm not an expert in creating a software. Okay, I'm not a coding expert. I may not be great in creating a firewall rule, in writing that firewall rule, but I may be very well versed with saying what rule should go in. I know what controls or how a secure coding has to happen, I am aware, but I may not have the skills to write it. That's why when you choose the team, you try to take team in such a manner that wherever your gaps are getting filled, and that's how you form the core team. And again, I was so lucky with people with that skills coming together, and that is a trusted group. And then you know that as a combination of that 5-6 people, you cover that entire area. Or within your organization's peer community, you identify people who can actually you go back and do it. If you don't do that, because security is a very complex environment and is changing so fast. If anybody is not trying to collaborate and try to run themselves and look at their peers or their subordinates as a competition, they will lose out. Because so much of technologies, because average we are talking about 40 to 45 different tools running in every security organization. These are all different technology. One is at the perimeter, one is at the API level, one is at the completely different space. And you cannot be master of all. So you need a trusted body who may be much experts on that. Again, I will say that I had people working with me amazingly better than me. And I was proud about that I have the support of them to work. So that's the way we should be looking at.
Now, because you mentioned tools, are too many security tools causing more risk than they solve? And how do you decide what to keep or cut?
It's a very tricky question, Ashish. The reason is 40 to 45 different tools is not acceptable. Okay. The reason is we are talking about 45 different consoles. Can we have 45 different skills? We don't. So most of the time what happens is you will have 5 or 6 on your key arsenal saying this is my major tools. The rest you configure once and you don't even open your consoles. The logs will forward to SIM. No experts are available. It's a very, very ugly environment. Then we started talking about saying we need a platform solutions. The platforms came into picture with multiple solutions together. But did the companies really acquire together? Because inside the organization, there may be 3 different stakeholders for that all solution. So the solution guy, so take an example, one product, say NAC. NAC is there, it can do a visibility, it can do a control orchestration, it can do many things. But the procurement would have been done by the NAC guy who's an access management guy. His priority is only to get that NAC enforced. He will never look at the other features. So when you need a visibility, the guy who is a stakeholder will buy another product. So there is a lot of opportunity to merge and look at. So I would say at least we can reduce a 20% cost related to the tools if you put somebody to have a holistic look at that without emotion, saying that, okay, I bought it, I know that vendor is supporting all of that. Forget about all of that thing. And if somebody independently look, you can reduce the 20% cost of that. Also, now the mesh architecture we started talking, security mesh architecture. That is essentially saying that can I limit the number of consoles and then operate in that way? But the other side, when you other school of thought is saying that okay, I bought a product which does everything and that crashed. Now we are talking about aggregator list. I went to AWS or I went to a CDM provider like an Akamai or a Cloudflare or whichever that company. I'm just taking the name for the sake of it. I'm talking more of the technology side. And they fail, my entire network is out. So aggregation has its own problem with aggregation risk. When you are going for federated way, it has its own problem because earlier we said we will go for layered security because if one fails, let's have the other one. So I know many companies, they say perimeter, I'm going to put one firewall, but on the inside layers, I don't want to put the same firewall because what if one has a weakness, the next one will catch that. Okay, then the problem, you need two skill set. You have two different consoles. So both had its own plus or minus. Let me put it that way.
Sir, what are your views on open source tools? Because there are a bunch of them today.
Good. So let's take an example. There is a product called Seek. Seek is now supported by, suddenly I'm not getting that name because I'm a big fan of that company. They have an NDR running on that solution. Or we have seen Nessus. It was supported by another company with us. So open source is the foundation, but there is a commercial team who is available with a smaller fees where you can go. Correlate is the product who is supporting the Zeek. Okay, so those products are really good because you get the flavor, the advantage of a community support on an open source. Cost is much lower, but there is somebody supporting and maintaining it. Okay, I'm a big fan of it. Okay, and many a times they don't have so much of vested interest because the unfortunate thing in the cyber security market is there are some major vendors. Without the product is rightly built or completely effectively done, they tried pushing it with their muscle. They went to CIO, they went to CISO, they bundled the product and skews the CISO out on taking a decision on what he wants because it was came from the top as a mandate product again, which is bad. We don't see that with open source. But the problem again is saying that do we have the skill set to run it? If we have enough skill set to do it, surely open source in specific areas.
And in your opinion, can regulations actually keep up with the technology speed? Or are we seeing compliance fatigue hurt real security? And I'm coming from the point of view of the cat and mouse situation.
See, all when a technology, so take an example, privacy. Privacy regulation took a long time to get to pass. Okay. But I'm happy and that we have a privacy regulation, but it took a long time. Because earlier, if you look at India is an open society where we never thought information is private. That time, if they come back and put a lot of regulations, we will say innovations are not happening or these are all roadblocks for innovations. It took a long time. So take another example, artificial intelligence. Now, if regulators come and put a strong rules around it, the technology is changing so fast. Can they really control anything? No. They can give a guidelines saying that you should have fairness, you need to have explainability, you need to have non-biased, all of that thing they can say as a guiding principles. But too difficult to come with a regulation unless until it comes to that level. So regulators are constantly watching it. And whenever the intervention records, they're giving guidance, but it's too difficult to come and control anything in the new world. Now, ideally, if you look at WhatsApp, why a lot of people from a regulatory point of view or from an MHA point of view don't like WhatsApp? Because WhatsApp has encryption where we don't have the key and that channel can be misused. We have seen in Telegraph and all of that thing. But if they come back and say we are not allowed to use WhatsApp, there will be a lot of media coverage and people will be upset on that. So they are watching it in a right manner to say when to intervene at what level. Okay, so they have their own challenge. Let me put that way.
Sir, I don't intend to sound pessimistic, but do you think India is culturally ready for a privacy regulation, both in
Now,
business
yes.
and
Now, yes, Ashish. The reason, long time back, most of the early adopters of privacy was to do business with European companies. So many countries has jumped into privacy purely for that purpose. Now, if you look at in India, number of cyber frauds and scams happening is huge, right? And most of this has somewhere our personal data was leaked, either from our telecom provider or somewhere it was leaked And that in the later stages came as a fraud, or the fraudsters used it. That's how they know our name. They know our all of that details because it was leaked from somebody. Okay. Is there any regulation to stop them? No. Few months back or a year back, we had a major healthcare insurance company leaking crore or so the patient's data. And that data supposed to be from the time you get admitted to consult take an appointment in an hospital till the time you discharge. Your ECG report, your blood report, your everything is there in that report. It was leaked. Now artificial intelligence is available. Somebody having an access to this dump can use this data for so much of fraud, especially in South India. Okay. When this came, did the provider had any responsibility? Zero, because there was no regulation. Now, many people are understanding that without a regulation, I am always sitting that to get hit. So because of that, it will be used better. But what may change is, especially in India now, we have to mandatorily opt in. Now, when we go to, although we have high penetration of telecom and digital and everything, our literacy is not matured enough. So when I go to somebody and say that, okay, you have to opt in, then a lot of questions will come. Why should I do it? What am I going to get it? So it becomes a complicated one. And if I choose to say, no, I wanted strong privacy, and later we will complain saying why I am not getting personalized information because I never shared my context. So that will have its own problem. But I think the rules will be well accepted in the current scenario. And also they have mandated only for the major players as a controller or a fiduciary. They can mandated only that, and they may insist their providers as a provider to comply with it. But a normal organization who is collecting their HR data or students' data for their school, if I'm taking a school as this thing, children's data for the school, currently there is no regulations mandating them to go for privacy. But that will become a hygiene factor or a differentiator for at some stage.
I feel this could also be the start of a cultural change, and it might take time, but I'm very optimistic.
The biggest change happened. One of the triggers is this. When mobile phone came into picture, till that time everything was open. Everything belongs to everybody. When mobile phone came in, except the mother of the house, her phone is everybody's phone. Okay. Except hers, nobody's phone was shared. The kid doesn't want to give their phone to parents. Parents don't want to give the phone to them. So there is a privacy automatically came into picture. This is mine because my data is there. My photos are there. Okay. Mothers, good or bad, everybody opens it. Everybody knows that password. Okay. So we already started talking privacy at our household. I'm not supporting or anything, but we already started doing it. So when that regulation comes, so the Indian regulation, I think it came on a right time also now because there will not be a resistance. If it was 3-4 years back, I think everybody would have resisted saying, what is privacy? Why can't we have that data? Now, then the simple question is, do you share your phone with your kid or whoever is it? Is it because there is any secret? Absolutely not. But somehow it became a culture saying that I don't want to give it.
It's a great analogy and a real life example and an observation, I must say. So thank you for sharing that. And you did also mention about the hospital, the data breach that happened some time back, and there was no accountability, nobody was responsible, and all of that, which also kind of brings me to another important question that given today's high profile breaches, should CISOs be accountable at the board level, even facing personal liability? Because this has been making news quite a lot in recently.
So in 2015-2016 period, when breaches used to happen, it was a norm that CISO immediately gets sacked. Okay. A very large organization in US got breached. It's a case study breach. And that CISO was never sacked. So I was very curious and I happened to see him once and I asked him why you were not sacked. So his answer was that he had clearly published a RASI metrics saying who is accountable, responsible for each of the activities. So when an investigation happened, they couldn't find a fault on a accountability lapse with the CISO. Okay. Due to which he was not penalized. Now take an example. Many organizations, anything which is gray, anything which doesn't have an honor, they give it to the CISO. And CISO will jump in thinking that bigger size, bigger budget makes me bigger. In reality, he's actually making more weak or vulnerable by himself. Okay. And many a times we don't publish a RASI at all. Okay. Because everybody wants to keep it gray. We also support it. Now, If there is a RASI metrics which has been published, and if that risk is been documented in your risk register or communicated to the relevant stakeholders, and if they have not given an approval or not taken action, CISO should not be penalized at any cost. Okay. That is why now many organizations, the leadership is very much afraid when they see a risk register coming in, because because then it becomes their liability. So that's the reason I mentioned earlier, Ashish, saying the role of a CISO is to assess the risk in the right manner and inform to the stakeholder for them to take an informed decision. If you are doing that, you are otherwise the problem. I'll take a layman example. Now we have autonomous cars came into picture. Now, assuming that there is a component developed by my company, I am the CISO, and that major component goes into this car. And when I was giving it or shipping it, I knew very well there is a 5 vulnerabilities in it. And we internally discussed and said it's going to hit our timelines to publish and it's going to cost a lot of money. So let us ship it. Next version we will see. Something happened or an accident happened, somebody died because of that software's failure. Am I responsible? Because I was aware about that vulnerability. I knew the likelihood. I knew what could have happened. Okay. Then I may be liable. So earlier when a cyber breach used to come, it was an economic offense. End of the day, it is a penalty or a regulatory thing where you come out. But now it may the crime department will come, crime enforcement unit will come to you asking, you were fully aware about it. You knew that this can crash and somebody can die and you didn't act. So you are directly, indirectly party to that. So I may not say now OT is coming up in a big way. Lot of OT systems are going to have that problem. Artificial intelligence, we are going to take a lot of decisions based on the output from an artificial intelligence system. What if it is completely hallucinated and gave it? And we don't have a disclaimer anywhere mentioned that. It's like a pharmaceutical company. Okay. I get sued. Can CISO run away from? No. So that is another life of CISO going to come into picture. Now, we already going to for depositions right now. Okay. In the court, they need an expert opinion. Many CISOs are going. Now, I think on a lighter note, CISOs will have a better packages coming because this is also part of that jail time. So they will be compensated slightly on that. Ashish.
I'm sure this will get a lot of listeners interested and excited.
Although people are not talking loudly on this, many CISOs or people in security team has this in mind. So I done a assessment. Okay, I missed that scope completely. Am I accountable? I am accountable. I remember many years back in a large program, I was doing a vulnerability scanning, and there was an exclusion list where I should not be running a scan against, and because there are legacy systems in some factories in a remote area. By mistake on an upgrade, that exclusion list was not fully uploaded. The scan happened, that factory went down. They gave a bill of a production loss of few millions. Was my company responsible? We were. We were penalized because my scan killed them. They have told us that there is an exemption list and we missed applying it. So if there is a good lawyer, he can make sure the CISO is in trouble. So that is why they need to have the RASI metrics, accountability well established, and risk register well maintained. That's the only thing can make you survive.
With the technology advancements and more advanced techniques coming in, right, as we see every day, in your opinion, what are the key ethical and strategic dilemmas CISOs face today in using AI, not just fighting it? And I'm also asking it from the point of view that I think I know that you are a little bullish on AI.
So earlier we used to say this: the old CISOs are showstoppers. They are the road blockers. Even I have said that, although I come from the same era. I was recently thinking, why would they took that stand, knowing that they will be called or labeled that way? When the internet came and it was growing exponentially, everybody was acquiring it, a lot of use cases, a lot of websites, a lot of exposures was coming into picture. We didn't have enough technologies available to control it or reduce the impact. So they took a slow approach to make sure that we have compensating controls or risk properly assessed. And we call them the showstoppers. Okay. Now artificial intelligence came into picture, so much of hype, and it is continuously changing. Okay. Theoretically, we don't want shadow IT coming into picture, but shadow AI is surely going to come into picture because every organization is using Grok and AI or chat GPTs and DeepSeek and saying that and there is no control to any of those things. Now, organizations who claim that they are doing artificial intelligence, what they are doing is they are bringing specific fields from a database to an island and querying against it. Now, the stakeholders get so excited with the outcome and they will push them to have expand further. And at some point of time, they will open up the database. And that database, we have zero control what they're going to pick from there with the prompt injections or anything, because we don't have enough guardrails at this point of time. And we are still not sure, is AI really under cybersecurity? Okay. And because we are trying to get, for me, decades we were trying to get a proper CMDB. Okay. Now we were not successful. Now we are talking about an inventory of data. We need to understand what is the lineage of data. Where does it come? Who owns it? Who has permission to it? Where does it flow from here? Do we have the consents of having it? Is the purpose limitation taken care? Nothing is there. And in that era, everybody wants to use artificial intelligence with this data. The moment security or anybody says you cannot use, the team will say you are stopping our innovation. So it is a big dilemma. And in my understanding, the majority of the boards or senior management has taken a call saying security should oversee it in a strong manner. Nobody's taking it because they are just waiting, say, let the flow happen, let the innovation happen, all of that thing. But they should immediately call up the security guys and say, guys, you need to take control over it. And the cost required for that is at least another 10 to 20% of your IT budget or your security budget. The reason is when cloud came, we thought it is an extension of our on-prem, and we gave peanuts to secure it. We saw enough and more problems. Artificial intelligence is completely different game. We need a lot of funds. We need to a totally different education or awareness creation, the guardrails, the coding thing, resources where we are picking up. A lot is required. A lot of trainings are required. But I don't think anybody is doing it. So that's why one hand I am so excited about artificial intelligence, and the other hand I'm so afraid also about it. Because attackers are using artificial intelligence in a great manner. Defenders cannot avoid it. Now, I'm talking only one portion of it. A marketing team, somebody irresponsibly or responsibly is going to use databases and create a lot of predictions and forward-looking market projections. And your company cannot wait for the right way. So they will also jump in. So it's a time that you have to identify who is the real guardian of artificial intelligence and empower them. Otherwise, disasters. And especially when privacy law is there and lawyers, if they are ready, it's going to be a different spin.
With AI and automation, how does Sunil see security jobs evolving? And what skills are essential for the next generation CISOs?
Dangerous. The reason I'll tell you why. We create playbooks or response documents. So saying that, okay, today there is a new adversarial groups. Their adversarial tactics are this. These are the IOCs. We create one. What we do now, we go to ChatGPT or one of these forms and say, this is all, create one playbook for me. Every organization is creating the same way. Attacker is also created one in the same manner to understand what you are thinking. Now an attacker knows exactly how will you perceive that attack and how you respond to that attack. They know exactly. Okay. We are now in an era where many of the people who are not even reading the documents they created because AI created. Recently in WhatsApp, I saw, I don't know whether it was legitimate or fake, one newspaper had a front page article. At the bottom, you can say AI asking, should I remodify or something, because they copy pasted it. They never read it. Okay. Think about an organization, the people are creating documents left, right, which they never created or they never read it because AI created. And this new generation, after say 2 years or 3 years time, they don't have any accurate skill because everything is created through AI. And if there is a hallucination or anything, they don't have the experience to go back and say, correct this or look at it in this angle. That is where the danger comes into picture, because we will lose that power to understand. Because typically, with your experience, when an attack comes in, you immediately think few things. Is it from which group? Because if it is from one group, ransom is their way. The other is data leakage is their way. Other is political is their way. So based on the group, we immediately have an understanding. Is there a window for negotiation or absolutely no? If the data exfiltration for intellectual properties is the way, then we cannot even negotiate on that. So that accurate skill and expertise we will lose with artificial intelligence. While we may be able to create it, the problem is that attacker is also knowing exactly how you respond. They are also evolving. So we cannot stop, and continuing in the same manner, we'll have our own problems also. Ashish.
I just want to also hear from you, like, what skills are essential for next generation CISOs?
See, while I said it's risky, it is something which you cannot avoid. It's a need of the hour, but you should be extremely cautious of the other side also. That's what I tried saying on that. I'm not against, because I'm a big fan of artificial intelligence. Next is it's evolving so fast, because from earlier we were just worried about perimeter and malwares as a thing. Now it has evolved. Regulations came into picture. The cloud came into picture. Now we are talking about privacy. We are talking about governance in a completely different manner. The stakeholder expectations has completely changed. Environment has become so much of turbulent. Data is now, why all through we called data as a crown jewel, data as a new oil, data as the growth engine. Now people are also saying data is potentially a liability, because you have collected data so much over the years without any consents. And if the usage of this data, if I need for a particular automation purpose in a database, I need say 5 fields, and that had 25 fields. I never bothered to strip the other 20. I used all the 25 for that purpose. So data minimization was never a consideration, and that can also become an exposure, can become a liability for you. Okay, so now although security are the data management, people are talking about data management officers, new data manager, all of that thing we are talking, but security has a serious say over there. So we are talking about privacy, the data, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, the cloud. So much of areas are going to come into picture. So recently, I think Microsoft or somebody was talking about splitting it into different domains on that. I am still not buying it fully in that sense, because if you look at our organizational structure currently is to an extent in the same manner. While it rolls out to a CISO, we cannot remove that CISO as a function, but CISO guys will become very crucial role, and their empowerment is extremely important, that they should have all the adequate support. The tone has to be set very clearly from the top, and it's not going to be an easy journey ahead, because some statistics is the cybercrime economy is, if you look at from the global perspective, is a third or fourth. So people who have tasted that money, they're not going to back off. And still we have organization where basic hygiene itself is not there. Foundation is extremely weak. So you don't need a major hacker to bring you down. This just a small kid on the road can bring you down. That's the way things are built. So many places I'm writing a lot on how to the need to secure your foundation. So this year when the budget starting, I was just writing saying that at least keep a 5% or 10% separate to enhance or strengthen your foundation, at least to review your foundation, because that is extremely weak. The legacy systems, the lack of orphan systems, visibility issues, basic configuration issues, because we were always fascinated with new tools or new toys and new jargons, while foundation was not focused for many years.
Thank you for that very pragmatic response and approach in general. So I think that brings us to the final signature rapid fire round of this podcast. I would want to start with, in your opinion, which is the greatest myth about AI in cybersecurity?
It's like the blockchain. When it came, we said the world hunger will stop with it. Everybody has their own view. I'm not saying the blockchain is bad. It is really good. But every event at that point of time when you go, everybody is talking about blockchain. And now if we hardly hear that. Now artificial intelligence, everybody is talking so much about it. But many organizations are struggling to get the right use cases. Traditionally, if you look at, we have a problem statement, we have a constraint, we struggle or we innovate to get a better bandwidth, better computing power, better storage spaces. That's how we were addressing it. Now in artificial intelligence, we have everything in place. We have the models almost ready. We have the data centers ready. Accessibility is there. Everything is there. Okay, affordability is there, but strong use cases are not there. So the challenge part is that if we are saying that overnight things are going to change because of artificial intelligence, it could take its own time. That's where a lot of bright minds are required to think about saying what is the right use cases need to come in, and we need to look at in a very structured manner with the assumption saying that this is a dangerous zone we are in, so we have to take precautions when you are keeping every block in it. So that's my view on that, Ashish.
Sir, thank you so much for taking out time. I appreciate all your inputs and this candid conversation. Any closing words before we wrap up this podcast?
No, thank you, Ashish. I'm very happy to see that focused webcasts are happening, because there will be a lot of people who may be interested to hear this. So appreciate your initiative. And thank you very much for inviting me or considering me for this. And Merry
course, sir.
Christmas and a wonderful New Year ahead.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure all mine, and thank you for having this conversation. You've always been an inspiration, like I was saying earlier. And every time I get to speak with you, there's always so much more to learn in terms of perspectives and your approach and your leadership. So thank you so much once again, and I hope you have a great new year ahead too.
Thank you, Ashish. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for joining CISO Chair. Subscribe for global perspectives and bold conversations on cybersecurity. Stay secure, stay inspired. See you in the next episode.